Welcome in, everyone. Let me turn down the music a little bit. But if you like the music, it's a Rally House. It's pretty good vibe. This is honestly the type of music I've been listening to while doing my homework all the time now. We got a lot of cool stuff lined up today. All right. Welcome in, everyone, to the Inland Empire Political News broadcast with Angelina Tucci. That's me. It is Sunday, September 28th. Let me know how you are doing on this cloudy... Wait, hold on. Still cloudy outside. I mean, it's like gray. The sun is trying to break through. We'll be going over California Prop 50, what that means for Californians this election season. And also the gubernatorial race, the California governor race, because as we know, Governor Gavin Newsom is going to be trying to go for president, I think. Kamala Harris no longer wants to be our governor, so it's going to be a full race for sure. Not that she was going to get an easy shoo-in, but it's really heating up now. And then later in the broadcast, we will be going over some updates in California ice raids. We're going to be going over someone who passed away in ICE custody, so stay tuned for that. Okay, so first off, Kamala Harris just dropped her book titled 107 Days and How She Did Not Do It. How she did not become our president. So sad. Now she's not going to run for governor, something that I think a lot of people wanted her to do. I don't think I wanted her to be governor or even to run for governor. I kind of want her to just Hillary Clinton fade away. But she's not. She's out there putting out her book, and now we are seeing Gavin Newsom all over the place. This article from the Orange County Register titled, "These are the candidates for California's governor in 2026." And it's written by Caitlin Schallhorn. She's part of Southern California News Group. This was last updated August 8th. Here's a look at who has declared their candidacies thus far. We'll keep the list updated as more people announce. Okay, Senator Toni Atkins of San Diego launched her gubernatorial bid in January 2024. The former leader of the state Senate, Atkins would make history as the first woman or openly LGBTQ governor of California. Oh, wow. We got so many gays in California Senate. Originally from Virginia, Atkins is former mayor of San Diego and served in the assembly where she was speaker. But the next person is Javier Becerra. Former U.S. Health Secretary Javier Becerra jumped into the race on April 2nd with a focus on his longtime career in California politics and affordability issues. Then we have the first Republican, and I would argue probably the one Republican that's leading right now, Chad Bianco, which we covered last episode in his little fight with On the Tira reporter Ahmed Beloso. Bianco has been getting so much notoriety these past few years because he's just been, I don't know, he's just been in the news a lot. He's being controversial. He's putting himself out there. I think he was like one of the first people that's like, I'm going to run for governor. Longtime veteran of the department, Bianco, a Republican, has led Riverside County's largest law enforcement agency since 2018. His term as sheriff does not end until 2028. So what's up? He's already making big moves. Oh, we got another Democrat. Stephen Kolbeck, hospitality entrepreneur. Oh, great. How many hotels does he own? Stephen Klobeck announced his gubernatorial run November 5th, 2024. Klobeck, who has worked across the hospitality industry, including timeshares. Oh, wow. He said he is concerned with how unaffordable California has become. Wow. And we got another Republican, and I think this guy is Steve Hilton. He is the second leading Republican, I think, next to Chad Bianco. And I don't know, why would you like Steve Hilton over Chad Bianco or vice versa? They both seem to be pretty conservative guys. This dude, Steve Hilton, was on Fox News. Chad Bianco is a officer, so of course, you know, he's conservative already and has so many conservative points in comparison to Steve Hilton. But we got Katie Porter. Some of you might remember her. Former Representative Katie Porter, a 3-term member of Congress from Orange County, made her candidacy official on March 11th after publicly considering a run at the office following her bid for the U.S. Senate. Okay, blah, blah, blah. So we know her, another Democrat. I don't know who this is. Tony Thurmond? Tony Thurmond. An announcement largely drawing on his upbringing, State Superintendent of Public Instruction, Tony Thurmond, jumped to the campaign ring September 2023. Man, these people have been going for a while. Okay, he's from the Department of Education and sounds like an educator. And then we got, I would say, Gavin Newsom before Gavin Newsom, Antonio Villaraigosa. He's a super controversial figure. Many of you may remember him as mayor of Los Angeles for a few years. I thought he had fallen off when he was wrapped up with that entire scandal. The Univision lady, or I don't know who it was, Telemundo, whatever reporter it was that he was messing around with. I thought he was done with that. But no, he is still around, and he's making like big moves. You know who he reminds me of? He reminds me of Rahm Emanuel, another former mayor of a big blue city. And then we have Betty Yee. I don't know who Betty Yee is. Vice chair of the California Democratic Party and former state controller, launched her campaign for governor in March 2024, vying to become the first woman serving in the position. Okay. As a San Francisco native, Yee served as former Governor Grave Davis's budget director. Oh no, that's kind of bad, because didn't the whole reason Gray Davis got recalled was because of the budget? Essentially, she's the state's chief fiscal officer since 2014. Wow. Okay. So yeah, those are the people who are in the race so far. This article from the Daily Bulletin talking about GOP frontrunners, right? California has not had a Republican governor in like over 20 years, right? Last Republican governor California had was Arnold Schwarzenegger. And by that standard, I wouldn't say, I don't know, Republicans in chat will have to tell me, is Arnold Schwarzenegger a conservative of today? Or is he like an anti-Trump, never Trump Republican? Is he a appropriate conservative to represent, like, because this is kind of the bar. These two, Chad Bianco and Steve Hilton, you know, the last Republican in office was Arnold. So do you think that these two could swing that balance that Arnold did by being a Republican in a blue state, by being a Republican governor for a blue state? How did he do that? The California has been blue since the 90s, right? Or I should say since the late 90s, super solidified in the 2000s, but California is a blue state. We've produced some of the most greatest Republican politicians of all time. That's a funny thing that people always like to say, but why do we have these Republicans? Are like they cool with Democrats? Like, was Arnold cool with Democrats that he just broke bounds and was just popular no matter what? I don't know. He was the Terminator, and then thus we gave him the title, the Governator. So, let's see. I don't know. I mean, we'll have to see who the Democrats put forward, but I feel like this is the real race with the conservatives and whoever they're going to put forward to go against whatever Democrat they find. There's more than enough of them, and we'll have to see what the Democratic Party puts forward. They do. All right. Let's get into this article from the Daily Bulletin. Again, another writer, journalist from Southern California News Group, Lynn Tatt. The article is titled, GOP Frontrunners in California's Gubernatorial Race Hail from Different Worlds. Sheriff Chad Bianco and former Fox News host Steve Hilton have stark differences, but both support President Donald Trump. And as many of you know, I think in both parties at this point, but let's just talk about the Republican Party right now. There is a bit of a divide. We have, I think for sure in both parties, Democrats and Republicans, there is, or at least has been since the 2016 election, a divide between the establishment of the parties and then the base of the parties. As we know, throughout the entire world, people have been extremely upset with the establishment, right? With the elites that not necessarily control the world, but make all the decisions and pull all the levers, right? We have been upset with them for a while, and that's why we have seen so many populist candidates all across the world, Donald Trump being one of them. And in this new political climate, we're going to have to see how these two men are going to have to either win over Trump's base or win over California Democrats, maybe moderate Democrats. But I could tell you right now, Sheriff Chad Bianco ain't winning over any of those Antifa leftists, right? They ain't gonna vote for Chad Bianco. Okay, if California is really as blue and as a leftist, state that it's always being painted as, would California realistically elect a man of the law, a man who works for the law? I don't know. This guy, Steve Hilton, he's another entertainer, and I think that's what the world wants right now, is these personable people who, say that they're gonna do what the people want, blow up the system, and make things better. So let's continue with the article. That's enough of my 2 cents, but of course, it's a discussion here on the broadcast, so any comments or questions or thoughts, leave them in the description down below. Bianco, who has often seen sporting a cowboy hat, grew up in a small mining town in Utah. Moving to Southern California in 1989, 4 years later, he graduated from San Bernardino Sheriff's Academy according to his campaign bio, at the top of his class. Wow. To many, the 57-year-old is a no-nonsense law and order candidate who championed Prop 36. Who remembers Prop 36? Raise your hand. The 2024 voter-approved ballot measure that increased penalties for certain drug and retail theft crimes and has made public safety a pillar for his campaign. Then there's Hilton, a British-born global businessman who helped get David Cameron elected as the United Kingdom's prime minister before becoming Fox News host. Wow. Hilton, 56, moved to San Francisco Bay Area in 2012 and in 2023 founded Golden Together. According to its website, the organization advocates on various policy issues in California, ranging from business climate and housing to energy, water, and wildfire management. Sheriff Bianco, frankly, is right out of central casting for conservative Republicans. He is a lawman from the inland California who wears cowboy boots every day, said John Fleischman, former executive director of the California Republican Party. Hilton, on the other hand, is more of an intellectual. He wants to have more sparring and more debates on the ideas and the issues, Fleischman continued. Dan Schnorr, man, these people's last names. Dan Schnorr, who teaches political communications at USC and UC Berkeley, views Hilton as much more of a MAGA Republican. Interesting. Why? A reference to President Donald Trump's supporters and Bianco as a much more traditional conservative. That's crazy. I would have figured it would have been the other way around, but I don't know how crazy this British guy is. They both represent critical elements of the party's base, but there's considerable overlap between the two of them, Schnorr said, but they both start out with natural constituents. We call them pro-Trump and pre-Trump Republicans. Interesting. To be clear, Bianco has also aligned himself with the president. He endorsed Trump's 2024 campaign, and in an announcement during which he sarcastically said, "It's time we put a felon in the White House," a reference to Trump's conviction in hush money trial related to porn star Stormy Daniels. Asked if he considers himself a MAGA Republican during an interview, Bianco responded by saying, "We should be doing everything we can to make America great again." Okay, so yes, you're a MAGA Republican or no? Somehow making America great again has turned into this violent extremist thing that the Democrats want people to believe, he continued. I want America to be the greatest country in the world 10 times over, and I want California to be the greatest state in the country 10 times over. Bianco has also addressed those who have criticized his affiliation with the Oath Keepers, an organization with a reputation as an anti-government extremist militia group. Some of its members took part in January 6, an event which Bianco condemned. Wow. The wrongful actions of some Oath Keepers, Bianco suggested, shouldn't reflect the group as a whole. Really? So Bianco disagrees with Trump supporters who did January 6th, but he agrees with Trump, right? He supports Trump. I wonder how Bianco feels about Trump pardoning all of the people convicted in the January 6th. Does Bianco think that those people are still criminals? Does he think that they are not criminals? Is he making special circumstances for them? Or does he think that they should still be held accountable for the crimes that they did at the Capitol? I don't know. That would be, if I was interviewing Chad Bianco, that's what I would ask. How do you support Donald Trump but not support his decision to pardon all of the January 6th people that were convicted? Interesting. All right. The Riverside County Sheriff was one-time dues-paying member of the Oath Keepers. Oh my God, he actually, wow. More than a decade ago. Although no longer a member, Bianco continued to defend the Oath Keepers as misunderstood. In reality, he said, group members are simply people who served in the military or law enforcement who swore an oath to protect the U.S. Constitution. I'm extremely proud that I value my oath, he said. Imagine that. You have a politician that actually values his oath, and people who want to make that out like it's a bad thing. All right, on Steve Hilton. Meanwhile, the other leading GOP candidate in the governor race has been spreading a message to make California golden again, a slogan that reminds voters of Trump's Make America Great Again, okay? But like, this man has only been in California since 2013. That's like, he's only been here for 10 years. What does he want to make California golden into again? Like, what's his point of reference? 2013 California? I'm pretty sure, according to conservatives, 2013 California is just as bad as 2025 California. I mean, maybe 2025 is worse in their opinion, but 2013, those were Obama years still. Obama. All right. As a Fox News host, Hilton has interviewed Trump. Last month, he told Politico his good personal relationship with the Trump administration would make him a good champion for California with the current administration. Wow. Hilton also hasn't shied from associating himself with Turning Point USA founder Charlie Kirk. Within days of the assassination, Hilton changed the bio on his Twitter account to say, "We're going to win this for Charlie." Okay. Hilton is well aware that many viewed Kirk as divisive, but he saw his recently slain friend as someone who tried to break down barriers between people with differing views and bring them together for civilized debates, goals which Hilton can get behind. My campaign is focused on positive, practical things that we can do to help working people, small businesses, he said. It's not ideological. It's focused on things that divide us. What is a British businessman in California care about small California businesses? Why doesn't he go back to the UK and take care of the small businesses there? I'm sorry, I'm just saying. I just had no idea this dude was British. Like, come on. All right. Republicans in a blue state. Though some see stark differences between Bianco and Hilton, the two have at least one thing in common. Both can expect their road to the governor's mansion to be anything but a walk in the park. It has been nearly 20 years since California last elected a Republican governor, and the state remains solidly blue, with Democrats currently enjoying a 20% per voter registration advantage over Republicans. Still, both GOP candidates swatted away suggestions at the notion of another Republican governing California is dead on arrival. That's true. I don't think it is. People ask, how can a Republican win in California? My question is, how on earth can a Democrat win given their record? Asked Hilton. I think in the end, the facts and substance will be determinative and people will vote for change next year. Bianco, meanwhile, projected confidence that voters would choose him. We can finally vote for something different, and everyone says that I'm different, he said. So either vote for somebody different that's going to change things, or keep voting for the same stuff that we vote for every single election. The dishonest, disingenuous politicians that tell us that tell us what they think we want to hear. Whoever finishes in the top two spots in the primary advances to the general election, regardless of political affiliation. Two polls released last month showed Representative Katie Porter, a Democrat, leading the overall field of gubernatorial candidates. But both polls also had Bianco polling better than Hilton. Okay, Bianco had 15% voter support versus 10% for Hilton. Bianco also had the edge over Hilton among registered Republicans, 37 to 26, in a survey conducted by UC. Okay, so Bianco has more notoriety with Republicans than the Fox News host. On the other hand, recent polls by Emerson College showed Hilton ahead of Bianco. In August, Hilton had 12% voter support compared to 7% for Bianco. The primary election is still 8 months away, and many voters remain undecided about their choice. Rob Streusman, who handled communications for then Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger, said the primary difference between Hilton and Bianco would be the title accompanying their names on the ballots. Early polls suggest that when Bianco is identified as a sheriff, he performs better. He said it will be interesting to see what Hilton's ballot designation says. It's just, what is it going to have to say? Entrepreneur or business person? He can't pretend to be a sheriff. In addition, Strutzman said if Trump ends up endorsing in the race, that could be a game changer. He expects both candidates to vie for the president's endorsement, despite the likelihood that Democrats would use the endorsement to negatively tie the candidate to Trump. If either one of them somehow becomes competitive against a Democrat in a runoff election, the Democrat will tie them to Trump either way, Strutzman said. So you might as well get the benefit of the Trump endorsement to emerge from the primary. Fletchman agreed that if Trump decided to endorse, his support would end the candidacy of the person who didn't get the backing. Trump has a relationship with Hilton because Trump calls Fox News host directly, Fletchman said. But that doesn't mean that Trump is going to endorse him because Trump is also partial to lawmen and conservative Republicans. It may be, he continued, that Trump decides that's not something I need to get in the middle of. Yeah. What do you think? Do you think who do you think Donald Trump would be more likely to endorse for a Republican governor candidate? I feel like even though Trump has a relationship, or at least the articles and what we've been reading has been saying that Trump has a relationship with Steve Hilton, I feel like Hilton is not as genuine as maybe people might see Bianco, just because Bianco is, a sheriff, and Hilton is an entertainer now. So I feel like if Trump does endorse Hilton, that'll be just Hilton paid for that endorsement, right? But if Trump endorses Bianco, I feel like that will be a genuine endorsement. Like I said, I think Bianco is a stronger candidate compared to Hilton, but I don't know if the Republicans care to get the Democrats' vote, or if they just want whoever's going to be most loyal to Trump. And if that's the case, then I think it might be Hilton. We already have Chad Bianco not criticizing, but openly disagreeing with Trump. I don't know if Hilton has. I don't know if it's in his character to openly disagree with someone in entertainment, right? That's just how the business works. That's why we are here trying to do small local journalism. So if you want to support small journalists like myself, please hit that subscribe button, hit that follow button, ring that bell for notifications. I will be doing episodes every week, every Sunday at 2 p.m. You can catch me live on twitch.tv Angelina Ballerina. You can subscribe on YouTube, and then turn on the notification bell and get notifications for when I post the edited version of the live podcast. All right. So yeah, let's move on to the next story. That was pretty good. Let me know your thoughts on that. Chad Bianco, I feel, is a stronger candidate, but we shall see what California Republicans have in store for us. All right. Next story. Since we're on it already, let's just switch to the gerrymandering bill. All right, so this is from Inland Empire Community News. You already know I love this website. I love this journalist team. Of course, they are small, but bigger than me. So if you want to support maybe more competent journalists, subscribe to Inland Empire Community News. But in the meantime, let's hop into this article and do some convo on it. All right. Padilla Lofgren introduced Redistricting Reform Act to ban middle-decade gerrymandering and establish independent commissions. Okay. Senator Alex Padilla of California, ranking member of the Senate Committee on Rules and Administration, and California's former Secretary of State, and Representative Zoe Lofgren, another Democrat of California, held a press conference introducing bicameral legislation to combat Republican effort to rig the rules and implement partisan racial gerrymandering before the next census. The Redistricting Reform Act of 2025 is co-led by Senators Raphael Warnock, a Democrat from Georgia, Agnes King, independent of Maine, and Adam Schiff, the other senator of California. Republicans in state houses across the country heed President Trump's orders to withdraw congressional maps in their favor. The bill would prohibit states from mid-decade redistricting and would require every state to adopt nonpartisan, independent redistricting commissions. For the past 15 years, California has had its own independent redistricting commissions, and the state continues to push for similar commissions nationwide while fighting back against Texas and other Republican-controlled states' partisans' mid-decade redistricting efforts. MAGA Republicans are afraid to run on their unpopular record of cutting health care and escalating tariff wars, raising prices for consumers, so they're redrawing congressional maps to hand Donald Trump the congressional seats he said he's entitled to, said Senator Padilla. In response, California has no choice but to gear up for a fight. But there is a better way forward. By banning mid-decade gerrymanderers and establishing fair criteria so districts are drawn to best represent communities, our bill presents a common-sense, nonpartisan solution to Donald Trump's power grab. The redistricting fight plays out across the country is not healthy for our democracy, said Senator Warnock. That is why passing legislation on the federal level, like the Redistricting Reform Act of 2025, is so important. Abusing the redistricting process is one of the most serious threats to democracy and our Constitution, said Senator King. Not only does partisan and off-schedule redistricting damage and disenfranchise American citizens' fundamental right to vote, but it also contributes to the rising polarization in Congress and further diminishes public faith in our political process. I'm proud to co-sponsor this critical piece of legislation that will ensure that American people are accurately represented by their elected officials and hope that we can begin to discourage hyper-partisan politics. Voters should choose their officials, not the other way around. I big agree with that. Why am I starting to feel like the Redistricting Reform Act of 2025 should have been what the Democrats were pushing from the get-go instead of letting Gavin Newsom do this whole redistricting fight? The literal fighting fire with fire that I said in a previous broadcast is not the way. This is it. This is it. I don't think anyone would want to have partisan, aka one side making the maps every 10 years, which is what we kind of had. That's why every time when you go to vote, it feels like you don't know what district you live in, right? Am I District 29 or am I District 27? What the heck is District 4, Nobody knows what district they're in, really. And they keep changing it. They've been changing it back and forth, at least across the United States. So changing it to be nonpartisan, to have it be an independent commission, to who draws the lines on who's the boundaries of who's going to be the representative of that area, or who could run to be representative of that area. Those are important. And I wish Alex Padilla was pushing this more than Gavin Newsom has been pushing Prop 50. Okay, let's continue. Democrats are committed to ending partisan gerrymandering once and for all in nationwide redistricting reform. We've made it our signature commitment. Oh, is it the signature commitment? Because I think Prop 50 sounds more like the signature commitment, but I mean the federal. We made it our signature commitment when we controlled Congress in the past, and we have led by example in states like California. It is even more important now when the president is trying to insinuate his deeply unpopular cuts to health care by redrawing the lines in Texas and everywhere. No president should be able to predetermine the outcome of an election by diluting the power of voters. The Redistricting Reform Act will address this terrible abuse of power, said Senator Schiff. President Trump has unleashed a redistricting war across the country, calling up Republican-controlled states and demanding they rig their maps. In July, Padilla convened a Rules and Judiciary Committee Democrat Spotlight Forum focused on racial gerrymandering and voter suppression, during which he questioned former Attorney General Eric Holder and Loyola Law School professor Justin Levitt on the Trump administration's effort in Texas and other states to implement mid-decade racial redistricting for partisan political purposes. Padilla also applauded California for standing up to Trump against Texas Republicans' gerrymandering last month. Okay, that's him in support of Prop 50. Let's watch this video of Norm Lee interviewing Maya C. Miller.
Said special election, and then also define what is the proposition that's going to be on that ballot. And they just came out with the language a few days ago, or kind of the official summary of what's going on the ballot. And I can tell you, word for word, Proposition 50 authorizes temporary changes to congressional district maps in response to Texas's partisan redistricting legislative. It's a legislative constitutional amendment, meaning the legislature put this on the ballot, and voters will be asked to weigh in on whether or not they approve of basically suspending the independent redistricting commission that California has. So California's legislature does not draw the congressional maps. They are drawn by a group of citizens on this independent redistricting commission, and then every 10 years. And that was a change that was made in 2000, I think it was 2008 and 2010, by good governance groups who were basically saying that the legislature was drawing sweetheart deals for their own. And so voters will be asked to temporarily suspend those maps and instead approve the use of these partisan drawn, gerrymandered, pro-Democrat maps for the next 3 election cycles as a way, Democrats say, to combat these partisan redistricting efforts in states like Texas and Florida.
Well, and you said that voters are the ones who created the Redistricting Commission back in 2008, and they said they give it a stamp of approval yet again in 2010. So what Newsom and Democrats in the state legislature are essentially asking is for voters to suspend the rules that the voters themselves set, correct?
That's right.
And how popular is this?
Okay, before he continues on, because I think we are all feeling his perplexity right now, as Maya C. Miller did such a good job explaining. Californians way back then decided, hey, we want to have nonpartisan maps or borders drawn. So, and if you think about it, that's Californians, Democrats making that decision to better represent Republicans in the state, right? To better represent voters who are not Democrats in the state, right? To have these boundaries be drawn in nobody's political favor, right? So instead of drawing these weird districts that take, little slivers into one place to go grab another big population somewhere else in the city or state is crazy. So yeah, Californians said We want to not do that. We don't want any partisan drawing of boundaries. We want nonpartisan drawing of boundaries. And then, like Maya said, we reconfirmed that in 2010, saying we definitely do not want to have partisan boundaries. We want to have nonpartisan boundaries drawing, right? So tell me why Democrats in California and Gavin Newsom decide that voters would go for this thing that literally goes against the democratic, and I mean democracy, those democratic values, right? That Californians have all agreed to already. Why would we vote to suspend that? I think he's thinking this would not be a popular thing, but we don't know in this in this climate.
What's the polling data show on this?
Definitely, there is this is a tough ask for sure. The Berkeley Institute of Governmental Studies poll came out in late August, shows that really only not even half of California's likeliest voters are in favor of approving this Proposition 50. Only 48% said that they would be in favor of it. 32% said that it would be they would vote no.
Wow.
And then a sizable portion of the population, 20%, are undecided. So, I mean, I think that just goes to show how much work the yes on Prop 50 side has to do to convince some of those undecided folks and maybe even sway some of the no folks to their side. And, I'm not sure how kind of widely known this ballot proposition logic is, but in California, a yes vote on a ballot prop is generally understood to be much harder to get than a no vote. A voter's default is to stick to the status quo, say no, like be skeptical.
Right. That applies elsewhere too. It's always easier to say no than to say yes, because what am I getting into again? But it's interesting because the campaign is already underway. That
Yes.
We've started to see the campaigns for and against this thing come together, and we've seen some 7-figure and more checks being written, at least to maintain the commission. Tell us about how the yes and no camps are sizing up here.
Yeah. So already there's been millions of dollars pledged on both sides of this yes and no on Prop 50. On the pro side, you have obviously Governor Newsom, who has his own basically ballot measure spending account to be able to advocate for or against propositions. You have money coming in from the House Democrats campaign arm and the independent expenditure aligned folks kind of on the Democrat side. You have House Majority PAC who flood the airwaves with pro-democratic, anti-Republican ads every cycle. And then interestingly, on the no side, you kind of have these two parallel camps that are, at least in my early assessment, are trying to divide and conquer a very diverse audience of folks who they think could potentially, align to be opposed to Prop 50. So you have folks like the former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy and the former chair of the Republican Party aligning to basically go after conservative voters and go after them with messaging and try to say, hey, this is a power grab by Governor Newsom and state Democrats, like don't let them do this. And then you have kind of at the same time this group that's supported by former Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger, who was a big proponent of the Citizens Redistricting Commission back in 2008 and 2010. You have Charles Munger Jr., who was also a huge funder of the effort to create a Citizens Redistricting Commission. Those folks are more of the good governance groups and trying to go after this really diverse coalition of yes, conservatives, yes, independents, but also even some Democrats who are hesitant to set aside this, more democratic way of drawing maps. And so not necessarily taking a strictly partisan tact with their messaging as as the maybe more Republican aligned or conservative groups are trying to do. So you have a really interesting mix of kind of odd bedfellows that are trying to navigate how to keep this pretty fragile coalition together. And I think it's really just a question of who's going to have more momentum going into November. Like, is the desire to have almost a referendum on the Trump presidency and on Republican Washington, like, is that going to drive enough Democrats to turn out and vote yes and convince enough of the skeptics who are like, oh, this seems kind of anti-democracy, is that going to convince enough people to vote yes on this? Or is the no side going to have that inherent advantage? And is there, just no matter how much momentum they can produce, are there enough people who are skeptical enough to say, hey, this seems like kind of a bad idea?
Right. And I guess the key is it is an odd year.
All right. So to briefly reiterate what she said, because I feel like maybe not enough people fully understand what Prop 50 is, but I feel like that's just the nature of propositions in California. Nobody knows what they are for or what they do, or that it's literally the most democratic form of voting for things in the world, I think. Actually, I don't know. There might be direct democracies in the world that I don't know about. But this ballot initiatives in California are one of the most purest forms of democracy, right? It's literally saying, here's the question, Californians, we want that we cannot answer. Californian voters, you answer it, please. What do you want? And so Prop 50, like Maya said, is that it's purely, it goes against democracy, right? Prop 50 goes against democracy, but with the intent of combating this other thing that people feel might be going against democracy. And that's President Trump asking for Republican states to redraw their districts in time for the 2026 election. So it really goes down to personal preference. Do you, one, think that drawing the districts of one state would be enough to combat what Donald Trump is asking of other conservative Republican-led states? So I think the key thing that Maya Miller said is, will there be enough people who actually think that saying yes on Prop 50, saying yes, we as Californians want to temporarily suspend our nonpartisan districts in order to draw partisan in favor of Democrat districts to quote unquote combat Donald Trump and Republicans in other states? That's what it really comes down to. Do you think that is an effective solution to this problem of Trump? Well, first off, I guess, do you think that's a problem of Donald Trump asking Republican states to redraw districts? And then, do you think it's an appropriate response for Gavin Newsom and other Democrats to say, well, if you're going to redraw districts in favor of Republicans, then we're going to redraw districts in favor of Democrats? Do you think those are effective solutions? Do California or do Democrats across the across the United States have a plan B if they can't fight this fire with fire, like I've been saying? Because I genuinely don't think it's the right move, but that's just my opinion. Y'all let me know in the comments down below if you think it's a good idea, if Proposition 50 is a good idea or not. Like Senator Padilla putting forward this Redistricting Reform Act in Congress might be the better solution, the more non-radical solution, right? With how politicized with how polarized, I should say, how polarized America is right now, I don't know if fighting fire with fire is such a great idea. We need to get back to seeing each other as opponents and not as enemies, right? We need to do that. Otherwise, we are going to have states fighting each other. A Republican National Committee member said during a panel discussion at the California GOP convention at the Hyatt Regency in Orange County, that big loss is going to mean Democratic domination, not only through President Donald Trump's second half of the administration, but it's going to set up Republicans in a bad way, Steele said. Democrats, meanwhile, have touted the redistricting effort as a way to counter similar gerrymandering in Texas, where, at the president's request, the state's Republican leadership is seeking to shore up more GOP congressional seats. For example, O'Neill said, in the 42nd congressional district, now represented by Representative Robert Garcia, Democrat of Long Beach, the boundary lines would change to lump in Orange County's Newport Beach, a more conservative voter base. With the more liberal Long Beach and LA, political observers expect the special November redistricting election to cost about $250 million as campaigns make a mad dash to win over votes. Noting that there are just 58 days until the election, Steele said the way to win is through grassroots efforts and urged those in attendance to do their part to get voters to pay attention. We need to awaken our base, and that's how Trump did it. He had to flip 7 states. That's this kind of election, Steele said. This is a big deal. This is the future of our party, he added. Wow. Good article from Lynn Tatt by, over at the Daily Bulletin. Okay, so I think this article tells us that Republicans do see California redistricting in favor of Democrats as a serious threat. All right, so I wonder if Texas Republicans and also maybe Republicans in other conservative states that are interested in following what Trump said would fear this type of thing happening. Crazy. All right. Now, the last subject of today, we're going to talk about immigration. We're going to talk about the Adelanto ICE detention center. We're going to talk about LA County. We're going to talk about San Bernardino County and what is happening. Anthony Victoria on September 8th, 2025, from the Frontline Observer, titled Supreme Court Ruling on Roving Immigration Arrest Sparks Condemnation Among Democrat Lawmakers and Community Groups. The U.S. Supreme Court has cleared the way for immigration agents to resume roving arrest in Southern California, a move that has sparked outrage from immigrant rights groups and Democratic leaders. The 6-3 ruling overturns a lower court order that limited the types of stops agents could make, lifting restrictions that have barred officers from considering factors such as race, ethnicity, language, or place of employment when targeting undocumented immigrants. The Trump administration filed an emergency appeal last week to overturn the decisions made in July to issue a temporary restraining order due to a mountain of evidence that sweeps were racially profiling people. The Department of Homeland Security said in a statement that the Supreme Court decisions was a win for the safety of Californians and the rule of law. Department of Homeland Security law enforcement will not be slowed down and will continue to arrest and remove the murderers, rapists, gang members, and other criminal illegal aliens that Karen Bass, mayor of Los Angeles, continues to give safe harbor to, said Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin. Immigrant rights groups argue their communities have already experienced the consequences of aggressive enforcement. Javier Hernandez, executive director of the Inland Coalition for Immigrant Justice, said the ruling could worsen these incidents. He cited recent incidents in Ontario, San Bernardino, and Riverside including hospital break-ins, attacks on family vehicles, and the detention of a mother with her U.S. citizen children. This is not simply about immigration enforcement. It's a thinly veiled effort to instill fear into our neighborhoods, Hernandez says. The Supreme Court's decision undermines constitutional protections and puts millions of people in Southern California at risk. Meanwhile, state leaders have voiced mixed reactions to the ruling. Democrats largely commend the decision. Governor Gavin Newsom called it a parade of racial terror in Los Angeles. Here's a picture of a tweet from Representative Norma Torres in response to the Supreme Court lifting the restrictions. She said, "The MAGA Supreme Court just legalized racial profiling in Los Angeles. ICE can now target you for being brown, for speaking Spanish, or for standing in the wrong corner. This isn't law enforcement. It's state-sanctioned harassment. We won't stand for it." Representative Darrell Issa, Republican of Vista, who mainly represents San Diego County and parts of Temecula, praised the ruling, saying the immigration raids are part of a record of success that should continue. President Trump has closed open borders, restored common sense to our immigration laws, and removed tens of thousands of criminal illegals from America's homeland. Wow. Wow. Okay. So a pretty good piece from Anthony Victoria. He also writes all of his articles in Spanish too. So, if you're interested in reading in Spanish, I will drop the link right in chat right now. I guess the whole reason I kind of wanted to cover this is because, well, one, Alex Padilla did another thing. Then on top of that, someone actually died in custody, in ICE custody. And it's pretty bad story. Here, let's go to KTLA.
And I'm Corinne Winter. Tonight, the family of Ismael Ayala is demanding justice.
Yeah, the Orange County man spent over a month at the Adelanto Detention Center before his health rapidly declined. His death tonight still being investigated, but today his family held a fundraiser in his honor. Sarah Welsh joining us live from the News Center tonight with more on that. Sarah?
Hey, Rick, good evening. The man's family claims he was denied care, and tonight they're demanding answers how he went from detainee to dead in 5 weeks.
One brown.
Sharing a meal and memories of Ismael Ayala.
He was very caring, very loving.
Last Monday, the 39-year-old was pronounced dead after being held at the Adelanto ICE Processing Center, a private jail contracted by the federal government. Family and friends in Westminster are now trying to raise enough money to pay for a funeral they say never should have happened.
He shouldn't have died. He should have been cared for.
Ayala came to the U.S. as a child, had DACA protection, but was denied after a DUI conviction in 2015 and then in 2019, and sentenced to 120 days in jail and 5 years probation. In August, he was detained during an ICE raid at the car wash he managed for 15 years.
He was in perfect health before this.
Friend Christine Bone says she spoke with Ayala multiple times by phone as his health declined.
He would say, "It's cold. There is no heat. I have one blanket." We knew that he was very sick, fevers. He had an abscess that was infected. We knew he was being denied care, and we were worried.
U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement says at no time during detention is a detained illegal alien denied emergent care, and that Ayala was evaluated by an on-call medical provider and later referred to the hospital and was scheduled for surgery, but died the day before. ICE says he was also hypertensive and had tachycardia, a rapid heartbeat.
My parents are the ones that went to see him and are the ones that visually saw him decline.
Democrat lawmakers, including local Representative Judy Chu, have expressed concern over treatment of detainees and conditions inside the facility. Ayala's family and friends are demanding answers and accountability.
There is an investigation going as far as I'm aware, but we have not gotten many answers to what happened to him exactly.
It's not even a political issue at this point. It's a human being. It's a human rights issue.
Back in August, before the man's death, ICE released a statement about conditions at detention centers, saying any claim of subprime conditions is false. The Ayala family is grateful for all their support, and they are planning a news conference with their attorney next week. Rick and Karine, back to you.
Crazy. Thank you, KTLA 5, for reporting on. All right. Let's get into the full story, because I feel like we should definitely go over this man's life. Whether he was a criminal or not is not up for discussion. He was arrested at work. He was detained. Okay, he had some DUIs. Not to say who doesn't have DUIs, but we literally have people sitting in Riverside City Council who have had DUIs. So what's up with that? He's not a violent criminal. He's not purposely coming out here destroying Americans' lives, is he? No, he was washing their cars. So before I get too heated up here, we got to look into the Geo group. They are making too much money off of this type of thing. All right, Ruben Vivas and Jenny Harvey, I think that's how you say her last name, of the LA Times. At first, the 39-year-old Mexican immigrant said he had a cough. His younger brother, Jose, said that then he had a fever. And staff member flagged his condition as potentially life-threatening, according to internal emails written by an intake lieutenant and obtained by the Times. He was rushed to a detention medical center in a wheelchair. But an hour and a half later, medical staffers cleared Irby to go back to his dorm. His dorm? You mean his cell? He was not taken to a hospital and scheduled for surgery for an abscess in his buttock until 3 days later. So sounds like if he already had a fever, was shaking, that if he had an abscess, like his neighbor said, and like the LA Times is saying, he very well could have been, suffering from infection on that abscess. Why was it not sooner addressed? Oh my God. By Thursday, he was complaining. On Thursday, he was complaining about pain. And then at 2:32 a.m. Monday morning, he was dead. Ismael Ayala Urbi's death in federal immigration custody spotlights long-standing concerns about medical care inside Adelanto, one of the largest federal immigration detentures in California. It also raised broader questions about whether immigration detention centers across the nation are equipped to house the surge of people taken into custody since President Trump ratcheted up his mass deportation agenda. On screen, for those of you watching, there's a picture of Ayala Urbi, if you want to see what he looked like. They said the facility, which was run by the for-profit corrections firm, the Geo Group, was unprepared to handle large increase in the number of detainees due to a shortage of experienced staffers. Wow. This Geo Group, do they have stock? Do they have publicly traded stock? They do. Wow. It's at $20.90 here. Well, it's been fluctuating. But needless to say, they've been doing pretty good. In September 30th, 2024, their stock was valued at $12.85. A couple of weeks later, on November 4th, their stock was valued at $14.18. And then, what the heck? A couple of days later, November 11th, it's valued at $26.48. How does it go from $14 on November 4th to $26 on November 11th? What happened in between that time period in 2024, in November? It's almost as if someone who said that they were going to, deport a bunch of people was running for election, and then people caught on to that and said, hey, I want to be a part of that. And look at how much this value of stock had gone up, peaking January 17th at $35.30. Wow. Geo Group holders, Geo Group shareholders have been doing good this year, I think. So tell me, why don't they have enough staff to handle a large increase in the number of detainees due to a shortage of experienced staffers? You know, if only they had some people investing in their ideas and their mission. What's up with that? Where is what is all this money that the Geo Group is making for its stockholders? Why are they not making sure that their one job, which is to prison these people, they're failing at it? They're letting people die on their watch. What is up with that? There should be no reason why the Geo Group's Adelanto ICE facility should have let this man die. There was absolutely no reason. Why was he not taken care of sooner? You better yet, why was he not taking care of this on his own time, right? There was no reason to have him detained by ICE. Whatever his previous DUI situation was, if it was literally a threat, he would have been in regular, jail or prison, whatever it is. But he was not. His DUI was not a threat to people, right? He was left free. He was working his job. He was being a productive member of society. I don't know if he had health care from that job. He should not have been in Geo Group's, possession, essentially. And I cannot, this should enrage everyone, no matter, unless you genuinely are like, I hate immigrants, the best immigrant is a dead immigrant, then I can see how you would be okay with this. But if you're not okay with someone losing their life when they did not have to, if it was an abscess that was infected, that's treatable. He could have gone to the ER on his own day off on Thursday, gone to the ER and got that abscess taken care of, where I'm sure the hospital there would have tried to bill him first instead of, whoever takes care of the billing for his hospital visits under ICE detention. That's so much more than this man losing his life, but ultimately, it's a waste of money housing these people, housing innocent people that are dying. Why are American taxpayers funding to have this guy lose his life, essentially, because he was prevented from medical care that he would have totally got on his own time? It does not make sense. Does not make sense. Leave in the comments if you think this man should have been detained or not. I don't think he should have. Okay. An Adelanto staff member said Wednesday that conditions have improved with the hiring of more staffers to serve the population of about 1,795 detainees. But the staffer who requested anonymity because they did not want to lose their job also said that some of the new hires lack experience, a factor that could have played a role in Ayala Irby's death. Yeah, they're going to have to do a whole investigation in it. That's another thing. Who's going to pay for the investigation of this man dying? Who's paying for that? Whose money are we using to investigate this death? Because we have to. We have to investigate it. God forbid other detainees start dying because they're not having care. Then it's just going to keep getting bigger and bigger of an issue, and then we're finally going to have to investigate it. There's a saying that I love to say recently: hard now or suffer later. You can do the hard work now, or you can put it off and wait for it to grow later to where it's so you still have to deal with it, but it's 10 times or however many times worse now because you let it fester, and now you are suffering having to deal with this issue. Hard now or struggle later, you pick. Ayala Irby is the 14th person to die in federal immigration custody since January. By comparison, 11 died in custody in 2024, 7 in 2023, 3 in 2022, and 5 in 21. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020, it was higher, but only 18. Before that, there were 9 deaths in 2019 and 9 deaths in 2018. GEO Group, which operates at Adelanto and 3 other California immigration detention facilities, declined to comment and referred the Times to U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Wow. GEO Group is not taking responsibility for this. Who was this dude whose care was Ayala Irby in whose care was he in? Was it GEO Group? They hire the people, I guess, or was it ICE? They bring the prisoners. Who's in charge? Who's paying for this? The Department of Homeland Security, which includes ICE, said that said in a statement that federal immigration agencies are committed to ensuring the safety of people in their custody. Comprehensive medical care is provided from the moment individuals arrive through the entirety of their stay, the statement said, noting that everyone in ICE custody has access to 24-hour medical emergency care. At no time during detention is a detained illegal alien denied emergent care. Ayala Irby, who grew up in Orange County and attended Westminster High School, we know it, Westminster High School, that's the high school, or I should say Westminster School District, whatever it was. They're the one who was being racist to Mexicans in the 40s. Look it up. It's Wendez v. Westminster. In 1947, federal court case that changed how schools were in Orange County. This poor man, he went to Westminster High School as an undocumented kid, made something of himself by getting DACA, probably had a decent job. Now he was working as a car wash manager. This guy had a tough life, and all to die in detention of ICE. Okay, so yeah, he went to Westminster High School in Orange County, was arrested by Border Patrol agents on August 17th during a raid at the Fountain Valley Auto Wash, where he had worked for about 15 years. On August 22nd, he was transferred to Adelanto in San Bernardino County Desert. According to ICE, federal officials declined to review Ayala Irby's DACA protection, which is granted to some immigrants who came to the United States as children in 2016 after he was convicted of driving under the influence. He was convicted in Orange County of a second DUI in June 2019 and sentenced to 120 days in jail plus 5 years probation. Okay. Ismael had been pretty healthy, his brother Jose said, with blood pressure on the high side, but as far as he knew, no other medical problems. But not long after Ismael arrived at Adelanto, Jose said, he got sick. It started small with the cough, then he started getting fevers, Jose said. They were only giving him like Tylenol and really nothing else. As Ismael's health declined, his family kept checking on his status, but ICE provided little information. They wouldn't tell us anything, Jose said. Eventually, we just got the word that he was in their infirmary, and that's all that they would tell us. On Saturday, Ismael's parents visited him at Adelanto. He was telling them that he was sick, he wasn't feeling well, Jose said. He's tired of asking for help, but they wouldn't really... He tried asking for help, but they wouldn't really do anything. A fellow detainee called Ismael's parents around midnight Sunday, Jose said, saying that he started shaking really bad and that he was finally sent to the infirmary because they called the guards. The family heard nothing more until Huntington Beach police officers knocked on their door of their Westminster home on Monday. Ismael was dead, they said. Ayala's Irby death comes amid intense scrutiny of federal immigration facilities. Shortly before ICE issued a news release about the death Tuesday, 2 Democratic U.S. senators raised concerns about the rise of deaths in ICE custody. In July, Senator John Ossoff, Democrat of Georgia, released a probe into allegations of human rights violations at immigration detention centers, including dozens of reports of physical and sexual abuse, as well as mistreatment of pregnant women and children. Wow. The Department of Homeland Security rejected the senator's allegation in a statement. Okay. In June, Representative Judy Chu, Democrat of Monterey Park, toured Adelanto. We did cover that on the broadcast when it happened, with 4 other Democratic members of Congress from California amid concerns over the increasing number of detainees and deteriorating conditions inside. Some detainees told the lawmakers that they had been held for 10 days without a change of clothes, underwear, or towels, Chu said. Others said they had been denied access to a telephone to speak to loved ones and lawyers. Wow, that's not American. According to an internal email written by Geo Intake Lieutenant and obtained by the Times, an officer at Adelanto initiated a Code Blue medical emergency alert Tuesday at 2:06 p.m. due to Ismael's shaking and complaining of pain in his rear. A Code Blue alert typically signifies a life-threatening medical emergency. This happened in the afternoon, such as cardiac arrest or respiratory issues. Responding officers and medical arrived, carefully escorting detainee from the second level floor down to a wheelchair, and to be escorted to medical, where he will be medically assessed with a further evaluation, the email said. About 1 hour and 29 minutes later, at 3:45, geomedical staffer cleared Ayala Irby to return to his unit, according to another internal email. According to a news release from ICE, an on-call medical provider examined Ayala on Thursday and prescribed medication for him. 3 days later, he was sent to Victor Valley Global Medical Center to further evaluate an abscess and was scheduled to undergo surgery for it, the news release said. Ayala was also hypertensive and displayed abnormal tachycardia. The release said at 1:48 a.m., the medical center declared Ayala unresponsive and initiated life-saving measures. He was declared deceased at 12:32 a.m. by medical staff. The Adelanto staff member who raised concerns about the experience level of staffers told the Times that the detainee with the abscess is normally taken to the hospital right away. Really? Why was he not taking right away? We take them out, the staffer said, so I don't know why they didn't go to the hospital. The Inland Coalition for Immigration Justice, a collective of more than 35 organizations across the Inland Empire, called for a full and independent report into Ayala Irby's death. This for-profit detention center has a long record of abuse and neglect and inadequate medical care leading to preventable sufferings and deaths, the coalition said. No one should profit from immigration incarceration, and no family should endure loss due to neglect. Immigration officials said Ayala Irby's cause of death is under investigation. ICE is required by law to publicly release reports on its in-custody deaths within 90 days. Okay. To raise money for the funeral, Ayala Irby's family will be selling tamales, carnitas, and pozole on Saturday. Wow. What an article. I think that gave us all the information we need to know, other than the big questions that everyone seems to have. Why was Ayala Irby not taken care of right away? Okay, so that brings us into Senator Alex Padilla, who I think should be the face of fighting against Donald Trump and his war, I guess, on immigrants. When Senator Alex Padilla attended an immigration hearing at the federal courthouse in San Diego Wednesday, there were no confrontations with federal officials and no public arrest of people attending immigration check-ins. Instead, the visit revealed the confusion involved in the legal proceedings conducted in multiple languages over virtual platforms amid the federal campaign of mass deportations. Padilla, a member of the U.S. Senate Judiciary Committee and senior Democrat on the Judiciary Subcommittee of Immigration, Citizenship, and Border Security, said he wanted to observe the issues that people face in immigration proceedings. In that capacity, as part of our oversight responsibilities in the Senate, I came to see firsthand that we've been hearing from what we've been hearing for months and months now, he said at a press conference after the visit. Not just the stops, the detentions, the arrest on the streets through this immigration enforcement activity by this administration, but even people who have been in the system coming in for periodic check-ins, trying to comply with the conditions of their status. In May, Immigration and Customs Enforcement officers arrested 11 people after their hearings at San Diego Immigration Court and placed them in a process called expedited removal as part of the nationwide effort to fast-track deportations. This month, a San Diego law firm challenged courthouse arrest in a lawsuit filed on behalf of 2 asylum seekers. The complaint argues that those arrests are unconstitutional and erode the integrity of the asylum process. There is no such detentions on Wednesday, but Padilla said he wanted to make sure no one was arrested while complying with the immigration process. Whether people are, quote, unquote, playing by the rules, they should not be penalized for them, he said. This should not be a trap. Padilla made headlines in June after he entered a Los Angeles press conference by Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. Blah, blah, blah. We already know that. Noem said, he barged into the event. On Wednesday, Padilla highlighted his low-key appearance at the San Diego court hearing. I sat quietly in the back, he said. I want to make sure I emphasize that because I was not disrupting, not recording, was not interfering with the procedures, and I saw multiple people who were scheduled to be before judges today in person. The judge was not in person. The judge was remote. While the judge appearance over video is illegal, While the judge's appearance over video is legal, Padilla said, it can limit their ability to observe and communicate with defendants. When a judge is not present in person to be able to read body language and is remote and virtual, that also is not ideal, Padilla said, adding that immigration courts need more judges to handle the volume of cases generated through increased ICE enforcement. First defendant Wednesday was a young Haitian man. Although the Wednesday hearing was simply an intake procedure that did not cover the substances of his immigration status or case, it included multiple miscommunications. Judge Olga Atia appeared on screen, introducing herself, and learned that he needed a Creole interpreter. The interpreter also logged in remotely, but poor audio quality made it hard to follow the discussion. Atia learned that the defendant had recently moved, so she ordered a recess while he completed a change of address form. While he filled that out, she called the second defendant, who confirmed that he spoke English and Bengali, but did not need an interpreter and did not have legal representation. It turned out that he, too, had recently changed his address and needed to fill out the form. Shifting back to the Haitian man, Atia tried to establish the basic details of his residence, educational status, and guardianship, but the attorney representing him said the client had been unresponsive and uncooperative and had not returned calls. Because of that, he and his co-counsel asked to withdraw from the case. The defendant said his phone wasn't working, so he couldn't receive the attorney's calls or messages. I guess if I share a couple of takeaways, it is in some way the inefficiency of the process, where it is needed for additional access to counsel in person or whether it is needed for translation services, Padilla said. That's it? That's all he complained about? Was that the process, that the surprise, bureaucratic process is bureaucratic as shit? Oh my God, Padilla. I really wish he would do more for immigrants' rights, considering he started his whole political career as an immigrants' rights activist. So, needless to say, we are done with all the stories that I wanted to cover today. Okay. So, thank you everyone for joining me today on September 28th, Sunday. Thank you for joining me for this week's episode of Inland Empire Political News with Angelina Tucci. That's me. So I hope everyone has a great rest of their day. Thank you, Stardust, for the hearts in the chat. I hope everyone has a good rest of their day. Thank you, everyone, for joining me. Today has been a wonderful show. I'll see you all next week back at 2 p.m. Here live on twitch.tv/Angelina Ballerina. Thank you for being with me. Everyone have a good rest of your Sunday. Peace out.
I'm just curious, is this for real? Just and I can't tell if you love, hate me. Never met someone like that. Got me so crazy. Did you know you got that effect? I said, let me check. Yeah. I will want myself, please believe it.